can read the transcription of what Phreak said about AD carries not sucking, and I already just can like hear it in his voice and like in the condescending tone that he has. I don't believe that crit marksman got severely nerfed here. Some of it was shell shock of I am sustained damage dealer. The game is as bursty as it's been in a really long time. That was true. I totally believe you for like 14.1. That I literally cannot play Jinx because Fizz one-shots me. Yes, an accurate statement. But since that point in time, Shield Bow's pick rate has roughly doubled, and overall time to kill in the game has gone back to where it was in 12.10 or 13.20 or 13.24. And I think being a crit marksman, as for the patch, will be completely fine. I do not agree with the Reddit comments that AD carries suck. I don't believe that is true. Like, it's like you could tell he's just triggered, and
we're not far off here. I just don't believe that crit marksman got severely nerfed here. I don't think that's true. I think some of this was the absolute shell shock of I'm a sustained damage dealer and the game is as bursty as it's been in a really, really long time. That was true, right? I will totally believe you if you're like in 14.1, I literally can't play Jinx because Fizz one-shots me. Yes, that is an accurate statement. But since that point in time, Shield Bow's pick rate has roughly doubled, and overall time to kill in the game has gone back to where it was in 12.10 or 13.20 or 13.24. And I think being crit marksman, as of this patch, will be completely fine. So I do not agree with the Reddit comments that AD carries suck. I don't believe that's true.
Is what it is, bro.
Kaenic Rookrun is getting a direct nerf here. Not much else to say except that Kaenic Rookrun is getting a nerf.
Yeah, it's just super broken. Like, I don't even understand how these items are released, because it's like you play the game for like I played the game for 2 days, right? Like, I started playing the game for 2 days, and when you go into MR items, when you go into the game, generally you go with the approach that things are going to make sense. So you look at Kaenic Rookrun and you're like, okay, like when you read numbers, it's kind of hard to tell exactly how OP something is. Something could sound OP, it could end up not being that OP. You read the numbers and you're like, okay, this is a good item, but surely champions that build Abyssal Mask or that Abyssal Mask is good on will benefit more from the Abyssal Mask than a Kaenic Rookrun. Like, that would just be general balance in the game, right? If you are playing something like Udyr that has a bunch of AoE magic damage and you're close range and you do a lot of magic damage close range, then Abyssal Mask should just outperform other MR items because of the synergy with your kit. How did Kaenic Rookrun even make it to live? How does Kaenic Rookrun make it to live if when you start building this item, like in 2 days, I'm like, yeah, fuck Abyssal Mask. I'm going Kaenic Rookrun every single game. And since then, I have went Kaenic Rookrun in every single game, in every single magic resist spot, period. And I think it's actually correct. I think that you should literally never build Force of Nature, Spirit Visage, or Abyssal Mask over Kaenic Rookrun on the current patch, which is, I don't know, bro. Like, that's not balance. That just means that one of them is overtuned. Like, the decision that you're supposed to be making when you're playing the game, and the whole idea of the item change, is that you're supposed to be looking at all the armor items and all the MR items and be like, all right, which one makes the most sense for this game? And that should be the like puzzle that you're putting together while you're playing the game. But it doesn't even feel like that when you play League. You're just like, I built Frozen Heart because it's OP, and I built Kaenic Rookrun because it's OP. And then they like nerf one, it's like, I'm going to build the other one because it's OP, and then the other one over here that's OP. Like, there's no decision where you're like, like they have a lot of like healing. I'm going to go Thornmail this game. Oh, they have like a lot of on-hit attackers. Okay, now we're going Frozen Heart to like, you know, to hurt their attack speed. Oh, there's like crit 80 carries. I'm going Randuin's. It's like, no, even if they have crit 80 carries, if they have double 80 carries, they're both crit, I go Frozen Heart and then I'll go Randuin's later. Like, that's just how it goes, right? I just think that this is like the problem that I have with League balance is it just doesn't feel like things are actually balanced. It just feels like you build the one that's so OP, because it's not like something is 5% more OP than the other thing. And it's like, I mean, maybe Frozen Heart is a slightly better item, but because this other item is so good in the situation, now I am building this other item. You don't do that when you play League, because one item is always like massively, it's like, this is like 20% better than the other item. So I'm just going in every fucking game.
This item is definitely very, very good. It is a cooldown nerf as well as a max health shield nerf. This item is strong. It might be a little bit too strong still. Is what it is. Worth pointing out that I am not sure what the correct answer here is in terms of items who their power is very skewed toward the resist. And like the, you know, magic damage shield is functionally resists in that world as well.
The problem is the magic damage shield regenerates way too quick as well. It's not like the Kaenic Rookrun is on a fucking 50-second cooldown. and you actually care about your Kaenic Rucurrent shield. You literally have Kaenic Rucurrent on every single wave, bro. Like, it literally is just up always. So you effectively just have like a Warmogs nonstop. You just have healing nonstop, because by the time that the champion you're playing against gets through the shield, you've already killed the wave. Like, I play Udyr into fucking Cassio, bro. Like, I walk up to the wave, I kill the wave in front of the Cassio. She takes off like my magic resist shield. I back off. Next wave, I do the same thing again. Like, this is like mid game. I'm laning Udyr versus Cassio and actually able to just like ignore him functionally. It's just so much effective HP. That is the problem, is that it regenerates so quickly that you essentially just have an infinite health pool.
What that means is,
when you're playing a side lane, and then in a team fight, you just have a high amount of HP.
When you buy it, you are not really protecting yourself against AD carries or fighters. That's interesting. I don't know if tank items are supposed to be pretty aggressively skewed against mages. In this case, of course it is. A very obviously anti-mage tank item. That's maybe okay. Either way, obviously this item is a little bit too good. It's getting nerfed. If that's getting nerfed again, we can do that. Holberg's getting a tiny buff. The passive that buffs cannon minions will now work if you are nearby your allies. That's probably always correct. Rite of Ages, I mentioned the buff earlier. Stridebreaker is getting moved into a Tiamat item, so it's going to have damage on the passive, basic Tiamat. It's going to have damage on the active, basic Tiamat. Its stat efficiency is going down. Its price is going up. Overall, it is going to be unique against Ravenous and Titanic Hydra and whatnot, so you can't get a bunch of and proc, profane, button presses obviously all at once. It's going to actually essentially have the lowest of any of the active damages on these items, but that's essentially...
I don't know if it'll be good. Like, I mean, it just depends on the numbers, but I mean, okay, like, I'm down with Stridebreaker being a Tiamat item, but if it's like severely understated to the other items, then people are just not going to build it.
It has a slow attached.
Bro, did IG win that game too, Sanch? You don't want to watch that game. That was maybe one of the most disgusting games, bro. We had Iron Wolves Odin playing in that game.
Then we have a whole bunch of champions.
Nah, bro, you just don't want to see it. Just saying, just don't figure out what happened. Just accept that IG won the game.
Changes in no particular order. Let's get into it. Ezreal gained more power than we wanted to give him in the previous patch. Also, Essence Reaver, which is now a core item of his, is getting buffed, and so it is reverting the Q damage ratio buff. It is reverting the R damage ratio buff, and then taking a little bit more flat damage off the R. So that Ezreal.
I mean, me moving the camera doesn't mean anything because like they don't give any actual information.
A little bit less of a sort of burst mage kind of champion. I think we could take Ezreal's early game down a little bit more at some point if we need to go after like his base AD or something, or a little bit of flat damage and early Q or something. We could. Regardless, we know he does currently have an early game power curve. We don't have to get rid of it, but he's certainly very good there. There's stuff we could do, but it's
Lilia nerf is 100% on point. They need to nerf this champion.
Crucially important. Just need to nerf him down a little bit because he's overshot and ER is getting buffed. Lilia is getting a very small tap to her passive damage. The ratio is not a lot of the heavy lifting here. It's going to be a little bit less passive damage down. People have more health, and so having more percent health damage could just go down a little bit. It's fine. Whatever. Q ratio is the primary nerf here. Q is mostly ratio, not a lot of base damage, and so this just moves her around to say, hey, actually, a little bit more of the rest of your kit's going to be relevant here, but Lilia is extremely, extremely too strong with all the recent changes. She certainly has items that really fit her. She likes when people have more health overall. She likes new Leandry. She likes Fruitmaker. She's very good, very mobile, very healy, but saying, okay, well, Lilia being mobile and being durable is a good thing.
The thing that's crazy about Lilia is if you look at Lilia's win rate, I've said this before, but if you look at Lilia's win rate, Lilia's always been a low win rate champion. Even when Lilia was strong, it was like 46% win rate, 47% win rate, because Lilia as a champion requires so many games to actually play it. And the spacing that Lilia has is really unique to Lilia. There's almost no other champions in the game that are close to as fast as Lilia with a fully stacked passive that need to constantly like go into melee range, like go out. Like how you play fights is not super intuitive. Your sleep is like broken by people on your team because they don't actually understand how the fight's going to play out. So Lilia is extremely unique in the way that it functions, and it's also hard to play. So the fact that Lilia actually had the highest win rate out of jungle means that, or like one of the highest win rates from jungle, means that it must have been so turbo broken. It's ridiculous. It'd be like if Lee Sin was the highest ranked, like if Lee Sin had the highest win rate in the game, or if like, you know, when Cassante has the highest win rate in top lane. Like Cassante actually does require some amount of skill. If Cassante has a high win rate in solo queue in top lane, that means that it's going to be completely, that is like probably the best champion in the entire game. It's probably just so omega broken that it'll be first picked, first banned every single time in competitive games.
Right now, she gets to stand out from other champions by, you know, being a fairly unique AP champion. We'll go after damage, and she'll still be mobile and pretty durable. Corki is somewhat of a reshape. The first thing is there's a bug fix.
Philios, yeah.
On live right now,
Shaco
damage
normally has high win
counts
rate.
for Eclipse. Corki's primary build is Eclipse Malignance. That is clearly too good because it means landing one rocket triggers Malignance, which then triggers Eclipse. Eclipse has a fairly short cooldown, has pretty decent damage, gives him a shield as well. One rocket trigger Eclipse is clearly not expected gameplay, clearly not okay. That is his best build by far. That being nerfed by...
And what did Vikla build? A fucking maw, bro. Fuck it.
A lot is, of course...
I guess if you're Vikla and you never hit the rockets anyway, then you never actually get a Malignance proc, so you never get Eclipse, and then you're just chilling.
A meaningful amount of power down. So there's a couple of buffs to AP ratios to say that it's really just on Valkyrie right now. I guess I'll spend some time talking about this because I saw people talking about it online as well, which is I do think long-term, Corki should be a physical damage champion who builds AD like a normal marksman and doesn't have to go back to base every 5 minutes for package.
And goes bot lane.
I think those three things are correct for Corki that we should do in the next 2 months if we can get the time for it and nothing else is more urgent. I believe those three things should happen to Corki. That said, right now, Corki has a functional build, which is Malignance Rocket Poke. If you want to play him as Trinity Force or Essence Reaver, Manimune, and if you went ER, then Quick Blades, and if not, then Shojin. If you want to play that build and maybe like Eclipse no matter what, even without Malignance, or you play Malignance even with this bug fix or whatever, I think that is a functional build, right? You can play AD Corki, and he's functional on, again, Triforce, Hexdrink, or whatever.
That's
and
fair.
You have some rockets, they're decent, the AD ratio is actually pretty solid here. You have Gatling Gun, you play in mid-range sometimes, right? You try to stay, facing them, and so you get the health from Triforce, health from Shojin, and you're pretty happy with that one, and he's not like a bruiser, he's not like Urgot, but he's a marksman, and he's a little bit durable, and he has some poke, whatever. There's some validity there. It's a reasonable build. It's okay. If you want to play him as Malignance and Rocket Poke, it's not the most exciting build in the game, but also people are willing to play it, right? Like, Corki has, 6x'd his pick rate over the last month because people are like, oh, Eclipse Malignance is like a build, and I feel functional.
Because people did it in pro play, and everyone just looks at it and they're like, damn, if it's this OP in pro play, I might as well just try it in solo queue.
As a poke champion, and I can do things. And so Corki existing at all is not a sin. Corki existing is a good thing. Of course, his bug fix is quite a bit of power down. And so there is a direct buff back because, hey, Malignance got weaker on Corki. And here's the thing, really. Because Corki is currently a magic damage dealing champion, this champion wants to build Void Staff. There is no other meaningful way to get Magic Pin in his build because there's no way in hell he's stacking Terminus. So this champion needs to build Void Staff for Crypt Bloom. And it's not Crypt Bloom because he can't build that much AP. So it has to be Void Staff. It's the only item he can buy. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any AP ratios. W's is bad. Packages is bad. Q's is pretty mediocre. Ours is intentionally bad so that you can't just play pure AP.
Yeah, I mean, but this is like what they did before, right? Like, this was the whole idea, right? That you nerf the AP ratios of Corki so that he builds AD. But then they just gave they gave too much AD ratio to things like Rocket, and then now you just build you build AD items with a combination of magic damage items that will amplify what he's already doing. So you don't build the AP for the AP ratios, you build the AP items for the effects. You build Malignance for the AoE on the rockets and the ultimate haste cooldown, which is really nice on Corki. Combo that with Ultimate Hunter, right? That's the idea. You build Void Staff because your whole kit is transformed into magic damage. I generally don't like the idea of champions having AP magic damage abilities that scale hard off AP or off AD, like the opposite, right? So if you're building AD having magic damage ability, I always think that's very fucking weird. And it's not intuitive in the game, right? Like, if you see a guy building a bunch of AD items and you're in the game, there's nothing that will tell you, obviously if you play the game for a while, but there's nothing that will tell you, oh, I actually, actually it does magic damage even though he's building all these AD items, so I should build MR instead of armor. It just doesn't make sense in my mind.
Poke rockets, your build falls off and just does nothing if you play pure AP poke rockets. That's intentional. That's how we kicked him out of pro last time. All this to say that he at least has a functional build that people like playing that's not earning a huge ban rate. So Corki is much more popular, much more powerful, actually getting played, not getting much bans. Great. I would like for Corki to be viable.
Yeah, pretty much the only way to know that in game is after you die, you click on your death recap and you're like, oh, I took 65% magic damage. What did I take it from? What the fuck? His abilities do magic damage? It's just not intuitive.
The current state of Corki, he is leaning toward building Void Staff. He wants to buy it 4th or 5th. And so for now, we have to embrace he has AP ratios. And this means that we can say, okay, well, it's not going to be the poke rockets. It's if you can go in and play aggressive Valkyrie, it's there. It's not a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's a nudge to say, hey, we know you have to build AP some. We know building Malignance is how you're actually having fun right now. Let's embrace that a little bit for now you get AP ratios.
Bro, don't tell me I'm going to have to see fucking people. They're going to give a fucking 5.0 AP ratio, not a 0.5, a 5.0 AP ratio to Valkyrie. And I'm going to watch fucking people play Zanya's Suicide Corki and just like flash W into the whole enemy team and then Zanya's. People play Kiana jungle with Corki with the AP ratio and they'll stun them and then Corki will have to flash W. It'll just be a rumble ult. Ain't no way.
That is why I'm buffing AP ratios on Corki here. I think that makes sense. This is a lever that we kind of want to test out as a pro lever until we can do a kit update.
So what is the passive duration? Like, is it going up, down? Like, I don't even know, because the thing about Corki package is the way that it's played. Like, everyone knows the game of Corki, right? It's like, all right, every 5 minutes he has package, so you try to sync it with the Drake timer, right? Try to sync it with the Drake timer, and then as soon as you know that the Drake is being secured, then you burn it as Corki. You burn your package in order to try to make sure that it's always synced with the objective timers. Like, it's such a boring game. And then like on the other side of Corki, it's like you hear the fucking sound effect in the game and you're like, everyone play safe for a minute. Corki has package. Like, just don't give him like an angle for this 1 minute. Like, it just feels weird to play, bro.
Like, do things like delete package or something and make him into a physical damage champion, which I think are all good things. Corki is in a world where he's a very boring pro pick. He creates standoffs with package. He is a poke champion. Poke champions are often pretty boring in pro if they are not explosive enough. If you compare to like Nidalee javelins or Zoe stuff, Zoe actually does some pretty meaningful stuff in pro. Corki just whittles you down, which is a much less exciting poke pattern than those champions. It's functional in solo queue. People aren't annoyed by it, but it's a very boring pro pattern. And so we're trying to see if lower duration on holding package has a meaningful impact in pro play. If we're wrong, that's fine. We can move forward, but that's kind of all. It's like, hey, does this do anything? Trundle has, of course, been too good for too long. We're taking some flat health damage off of him, some flat damage off of his Q.
Yeah, 15 seconds down makes sense because it feels weird that like if you package for the Drake, then you have to like kind of stall for this like awkward time. Where now if you, it's like you package for the Drake fight, like whatever, bro. If that's what everyone's doing anyway, instead of making it feel super awkward, just, change it by 15 seconds and let's just fucking have him have the package, I guess.
Early game skewed nerf to Trundle. Wukong has been pretty weak for a while. We know he's been pro-jailed. The designer who's doing the balance updates to Wukong in this patch wants to do some larger scope patchwork in 14.4. I think it's a really good idea to do this. I think we have some really, really promising leads here of what to give, what to take to make Wukong not a pro-jailed champion. But he's like a 48% win rate jungler and like a 49% win rate top laner. He kind of sucks in both roles, and he still gets a little bit of pro play. Like, oof, this champion's in a really bad spot.
When I played in solo queue, I don't feel like it's that absurdly weak or anything.
Anyway, we're buffing him quite a bit right now. I think there's a really good chance he shows up in pro somewhat, but that's fine. It's not like Wukong being in pro at all is a problem. Obviously, this champion could get buffed. And so
I don't mind watching Wukong play in pro play, by the way. Like, I feel like that's like actually a pretty interesting jungler to watch. It's the same way that like, yeah, Rel is kind of OP, but I don't really mind it being in pro play currently. Because like at least it requires some skill, and like I like to see people try to find engages and play around engages.
So the primary change here is increasing the rank 1 through 4 range on Q. We could have made this flat 175.
Like, I'd much rather have Wukong be in pro play than fucking Graves in pro play. You know, like those are the champions I really hate to watch in pro play. They're so fucking boring.
It still scales a little bit with rank, but not a bunch. E cooldown goes down with rank.
Because you play it? I mean, I play all these champions. I play Graves as well. I just hate playing Graves. I think Graves is not a fun play style. I don't think it's fun to play Graves. I don't think it's fun to play against Graves. Like, my Graves, like, when I was actually maining him, you know, I mean, I've actually a funny story. So when I was playing in Season 8, out of all the people that weren't pro junglers on the ladder, I was one of the highest ranked, which at that time meant that you actually go into, you would go to scouting grounds. And since I hadn't played pro in 2 years, I was eligible to be in scouting grounds. And I was denied scouting grounds because I had too high of a percentage of my games on Graves. So I qualified as a Graves one trick. It was something like you needed to play over 33% of it. You had to play on average more than 5 out of every 14 games on different champions, or you were labeled as a one trick. and I was labeled a Graves one trick, so I didn't get to go. I just think that the Graves, like even when I have high win rate on Graves, the playstyle of it is just not fun to me at all. Just like perma invading, trying to deny camps, like it's not fun. Like when you're really far ahead, it just feels like the other guy can't do anything. It just feels like you're just going through the motions. And then when you lose a game on Graves, it's like one of the most soul crushing experiences ever. Like if you ever have the game where you have like three losing lanes on Graves and you can't invade and like they're just like in your jungle with multiple people and you can't fight them, like there's no champion that feels worse than Graves because you don't have like any ability to be like, all right, they're invading me, like I can like, okay, if my team is close enough, even if they're behind, I can go for an engage here. You just have to like kind of just give up everything and it just feels horrible. So I think that Graves is just not fun to play. It's not fun to play against. Probably part of the reason why Tarzan is so toxic is because he plays fucking Graves and every time he loses, the game just feels horrible.
And the AD ratio on Q goes up as well, so there's not a lot of AD ratios in the kit overall. Ultimately, we want to give 1.5-2% win rate to Wukong in the top lane. And then we are pretty confident.
I would have went to scouting. Bro, I wasn't going to take a scouting ground spot as a streamer who doesn't actually play like I'm not trying to be in competitive. I was not going to take a fucking scouting grounds slot in season 8 from like fucking people that are trying to go pro.
There is a pretty solid, pretty low scope up that we can do that puts Wukong in a pretty good spot. I think Wukong, by the way, should be able to sit at like 51.5, 52 in top lane generically, like somewhere around like Garen. And he would
I
be
agree
totally
with that
fine.
because the thing about Wukong is like he's a champion that will generally have high win rate because you can't really fuck it up, right? The champions that are going to have lower win rate that could be OP but have a low win rate are champions that have a bunch of skill shots in their kit because people will play them wrong. But champions like Wukong, champions like Udyr, that it's very hard to like actually fuck up will generally have higher win rates because it's very hard to like actually play bad enough where you don't get any value from the champion. And like, dude, they can buff Q range on Wukong. This champion will not be OP top lane. Like unless they massively over buff the champion, he'll not be OP in top lane. Like, do you know how hard it is to play? Like, you could nerf Udyr 5 times and buff Wukong 5 times, and Udyr will still probably shit on Wukong in top lane. As a top laner, playing against Wukong is miserable. I completely disagree. I think Wukong is literally one of the freest matchups. I love playing against. I played against Wukong yesterday, actually.